So, not receiving what you want? Are you really doing and putting in all the work to start receiving, either law of attraction, manifestation, working harder? I mean, there's so many ways that we go about trying to just get there. We want to receive the life we feel we desire. And so, if that is the hamster wheel you're on and not really understanding how in the heck do I fix this and start receiving, I've been asking, where's it at? Then this is the video for you. Okay, so I always like to lean into, some of the themes and sayings, and we'll try to use a lot of different concepts that float around to understand and get to the nitty gritty on the one thing that we are having a challenge with if we are not achieving and receiving the life we want, and that is our receiving wound. It's talked about in the Bible, ask and you shall receive. Well, if you're asking and you're not receiving, and, a lot of scripture and spiritual texts and teachers, law of attraction, they all are saying the same thing. And you're like, but where's mine? You have a receiving wound. And if this is the first time you're hearing this, or you've heard it and you just don't get it, it's unconscious. And this is going to help you understand the ways to uncover that and start to melt that resistance to receiving. Because what's happening is you ask, and then when it's starting to come towards you, there's something within you from a limited perspective, a belief, an energy, an emotion, that feeling that we're going to get to today in this video so that you can understand how to melt that away and be able to receive the life that you desire. Okay, so somewhere along my journey, I heard something. Don't you just love that? You hear something and it has a profound impact on you and the way that you think. Well, that's what these videos are for. That's what my channel's for, is trying to use the gifts that I was given by the divine and use them to help you shift your mindsets. And so the one that happened for me, and I'm not even sure where I heard it along the way, probably, something in the law of attraction phase I went through, which is you do not receive what you ask for, you receive what you are. That's cray-cray. So that leads us to another thing, that you can't get from others what you're not willing to give yourself. Or another one is, first you have to have it in order to get it. And I'm like, oh, that really sucks, because I really don't get that. So what it's really all compiled down to a nutshell is that if we within ourselves are not allowing, because of something that we don't believe we're worthy. And so I don't want it to go into unworthiness, because I think that's a lot of psychological jargon that we've all heard before. And so what happens, even though it's rooted in the right essence, our mind has already stripped it of the meaning that it needs. So we're not going to go into unworthiness, but it is unworthiness. But what we're going to use as a different concept to try to shift this is to understand that if we don't feel like good, or like deserving of something, and being undeserving is a very unconscious thing that we picked up from childhood. And this is really going to be a lot of that, shifting those mindsets from our limited, narrow perspective to this new expansive one. And so that's what's happening. We're viewing it from this thing that we created in childhood. It could have just been, a lot of kids around us we perceived were getting more than us. And so we, somewhere in us, said, well, I don't get that stuff, so there must be something wrong with me. And so a lot of these mindsets are coming from a very limited perspective. We just accepted, when we didn't have a lot of wherewithal with the universe around us in these very early years, we accepted things into our unconscious as the holy grail, even though it's like saying what a 3-year-old, I almost said third grader, and that's pretty much about the age that we really have all of our solid beliefs. When we would hear a child say these things now, everybody else got one, but I didn't. It's like, you did get one. It just wasn't the same color as everybody else's. And you could have formed some kind of foundational belief that everybody else got better than you did. And that is part of your receiving wound. That's super unconscious. So be with me on the stories, but don't try to find them within yourself. This is where I kind of think psychology can get us on this hamster wheel of analysis when we already have a problem with analysis. We got to let the mind go and just kind of get into the feeling. And that's what I really work on within this channel. I'm just using the mind as a tool to understand where this stuff happened, that it is happening, and that's why we're not getting what it is we're asking for. Okay, so here's a story. Let's just get to a story. So let's say that there's a woman that you look at in the reality and you're like, man, everything she touches turns to gold. She wants it. She goes after it. She gets it. And so in our old perspective, we could say, well, this woman worked harder than me, or she was handed the tools that she needed to start a company, or she, some kind of action-oriented thing, and it's not. We have to stop that, because at this stage in the game, we have to realize one thing for this belief system is I've seen people work themselves to the bone 10 hours a day, barely can walk by the time they get home. They're super exhausted. They work harder than anybody I've ever met, and they're the poorest people I've ever known. And then I went to an area of the country where people are on the golf courses by 2 in the afternoon, sometimes noon after lunch. That started at 11 and they went straight to the golf course, and they're making more money than anybody I ever knew. It's because they don't have receiving wounds. And so the other is, we forcefully try to get what it is we need. We aren't no victim. We are going to work for it. We're strong. We're survivors. What is it? I can do it myself. I don't need you people. I work hard for mine, these type of mentalities. But when you have a receiving wound, you do that because you feel from a place within yourself that nobody is consistent, or money is, hard to achieve, and it's, you got to work hard to get it. And what are some other things that nobody's got me like I got me? I mean, these are all very toxic beliefs, and all they are is beliefs that you're saying consciously because when unconscious, I'm not going to receive wound. Okay, so back to the story. So this girl, everything she touches is gold. And so then we can use the example of she runs into a coffee shop and she sees somebody that she hadn't seen in years. And they look at her and they're like, wow, girl, look at you. You glowing. You got your glow up. I see your bag. You're doing good. You look so amazing. Okay, so knowing that she doesn't have a receiving wound, therefore, her response looks something like, thank you. I know. It's just been amazing. So grateful. Thank you for the compliment. I know I feel it. I feel my glow. I feel my glow up. I feel the beauty within myself. I feel the beauty in the world. Yay. Thank you for recognizing that. How have you been? Okay. So she was able to receive that compliment because within herself, she felt that. She felt beauty. She felt abundance. She felt her glow up. She felt good about receiving. So she could receive that compliment, and it was just off to the races. They probably had a very healthy conversation about life. Bam. But now let's look at the person that has a receiving wound. And I just want you to know there's no judgment in any of this. I use this for contrast to help you understand. If you want to stay in a receiving wound for the rest of your freaking life, then go for it. Everybody's right, has a right to their own perspective. Some people will hold on to that work. Hard work will give you a good life, and you can't shake them from it, and I don't care. Go have it. But I'm trying to teach us the easier way. In energetics, and what we're doing within ourselves is the key. And so this analogy is showing you which side of the fence are you on, so we can understand receiving wounds and why we're not receiving when we ask the universe for things. That same person in the coffee shop sees somebody from, high school come in, and they're cringing immediately. Oh, I hope they don't see me. But they do. And therefore they come over, and you can just imagine what happens. They're, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in so long. You look so good. What's been going on with you? You look like you've been doing well. And I can't believe how amazing you look for your age. And that person, because of their receiving wound, they go into a lot of different things. And so I'm just going to use a lot of examples because it just depends on what your unconscious receiving wound of why you can't receive that validation. And this is just a symbol of not being able to receive because we're shutting down. And so she could say, thanks. I just wish this person would go away. They're such a freaking liar. This girl's always been a manipulator. I wonder what the hell she wants. Oh, I think I heard something bad about her last month, about her man cheating on her. She's probably just trying to branch out and get new friends so she can go hit the club and find a new man. I mean, our mind will totally sabotage the beautiful moment that just happened. Because why? Because we are not able to receive positive, good, love, peace, joy, any of that. We are resistant to it. And we're going to just get to the point of why and where this happened just a tiny bit. I don't want to be a psychologist. I don't want to sit here and analyze again, but I just want you to be able to see if you have a receiving wound, bam, there's a problem. If somebody walks up to somebody and says, oh, I love you, and that person loves themselves. I know, right? I'm so lovable. If somebody walks up to you and says, I love you, and you're not in love with yourself and you don't give yourself love, you're going to be like, this mofo lying. What the hell do they want? And then the worst of all is that you feel valid in those beliefs because it's always been reflected to you. Yes, people are shady. They don't really love me. They this, that. But you create reality from that place because you're cringing. You're shutting down your energy. And then that person's going to walk away from that interaction and be like, that chick is psycho, or that chick is toxic, or she is just blah, blah, blah. And then it's just keeping those type of dynamics instead of the first lady in the coffee shop where now she's collaborating with her on something else that can bring her even more abundance or love or her soulmate or who knows. She's not shutting down to life. She is allowing the receiving through everything. Everything is divine connection. And you can pinch yourself off to it or you can let it in. Okay, so I hope that all makes sense because now we're going to go into how does this happen and how do we stop it? Okay, so the reckoning. We don't want any stinking receiving wounds. We want to receive. We do. Everything is it. I mean, in scripture, it said giving is receiving. What energy you're giving is what you're receiving back. So if you're giving this person shady, then all of a sudden they're going to start turning shady. It's just, it's law. It is metaphysical law. The whole Bible and many other scriptures, they're really rooted in the base of that. Light, love, those are physics. So why did we form these beliefs? I'm going to tell you why. And why they're there and why they're unconscious. We've all heard that when we're little, we absorb all the things in our environment and we form unconscious beliefs. And at a certain age, we're really rooted in those. So you can stay in that. You can. And you will heed the same results in your environment. If you're working hard, but you're just barely scraping by and you want to keep the belief systems and not adjust them and change the energy patterns, then you will get that same life. No matter how much therapy you go to. You got to get to the rudimentary, first and foremost, energy patterns. Giving love is receiving love. The girl gives herself love. And so when people tell her, I love you, she said, I know, right? Because it is a belief in her. So let's use the understanding of why did the person who was told that they looked beautiful or they were loved reject it? Because it caused them to feel uncomfortable. And then they project that as the other person is not honest. But what's really happening is you're not seeing deep within yourself that you are dishonest with yourself about your worthiness and your love and all of that, because our inherent nature is love. And so if somewhere along the line you've decided that you don't get love and screw the world and you're going to take care of yourself, and that glorification of busy, being an overachiever, overworker, all those things, those are signs of lack of being able to receive. And so what the best way to overcome this is actually quite simple, but it's time consuming and it's repetitive. And so when we have an unconscious pattern and we have to do something new and repetitive, we get lost in the sauce a lot. But all you have to do is keep bringing yourself back to it, because every time you start re-impressing the unconscious, nothing is lost. You can remember, this week to do it 10 times and then forget for a month and go back to it. It's all good. You are releasing the momentum of those old patterns. And how do we do that? You recognize the uncomfortable feeling. There is something that my soul, inherent love that I am, is true, is that my ego, my mind, my unconscious is going against, and it's causing friction. I love you. My unconscious doesn't believe it. Uncomfortable feeling. And so that's your indicator. Your indicator is your internal guidance system. If you've been living under a rock, you haven't heard this, but if you've been going through the expansion for the past 10, 20 years, then you've heard that. Our internal guidance system, if it doesn't feel right, but if psychology taught you that, then they didn't teach you the part that when it doesn't feel right, you look outside and say, oh, that person, I need to trust, they don't feel right. That's not it. They don't feel right because you're not meeting yourself in a good place with that person. It's all you. So let's make that make more sense. The uncomfortable feeling, you can dive deep into. What is this showing me that I'm not giving myself? So it's love. And if somebody says, I love you, they don't really love me. Or you're beautiful, it's because you have negative self-talk about your beauty, about your worthiness of love, about loving yourself. That means you're beating yourself up too much. You can't get from somebody what you don't give yourself. Can't get I love you if you're telling yourself, stupid, why'd you make that mistake? Why'd you do this? Why that this? So it's really about when you're in that uncomfortable state, you start recognizing, ooh, this person is trying to give me love and I'm incapable of receiving it because I don't give myself love. And so that's a whole thing that we've gotten lost in. That's why I keep saying I don't want to go into the psychology part of it, because then we can start getting in our head trying to uncover the thoughts, which that's not it. Love is a state of being. Our mind doesn't know how to feel states. So you feel the uncomfortable feeling, you sit with it until you can process it to feel better. That person could be long gone, but time and space aren't even existent. You can go to that moment where you felt the uncomfortable feeling when you go home and lay in your bed, and you sit with it and you be like, it's okay, 3-year-old self that thought that you were not beautiful because you didn't get the pink pair of overalls that everybody else had and they looked at you sideways and now you feel like you're not beautiful. 3-year-old self didn't get it, but the new self does. And so you can't receive from others what you're not receiving from yourself. Bam. So you can't receive the energy of abundance, of love, of validation, if you're not validating yourself, if you're not telling yourself you're lovely. And that, I don't even like saying tell yourself, give yourself those feelings. This is a flip from getting the external to validate and make us feel good to just learning to cultivate within ourselves feeling good. And the key to how to shift that is when you get the uncomfortable feeling, you don't project it out and then live in this perpetual crap. You start to say, ooh, there's that feeling. Let me cultivate love in this. The wound is where the light enters you, right? And so then once you start doing that more and more, you're going to start to recognize when you're much more capable of receiving that stuff. Then you start getting in the higher echelon of emotions and then those abundant feelings of joy, peace, love, and then everything you're receiving wound is healed and things start coming to you and you're not sabotaging them. You're not running away and shutting down from them. You're not attracting inconsistent people because the inconsistency inside yourself, your conscious mind thinks that you're doing great and your unconscious knows better, and that's the inconsistency that's showing up from other people. So I want to leave you with a real simple wrap up to what we just talked about. Therefore, you can use this in a real life application way that's not too, hard, because re-impressing our unconscious mind from things that we formed in childhood is really hard. That is the rebirth. That is the death of the ego and the rebirth. We need an ego, y'all. So stop trying to kill it completely and just float off in the clouds. It's important. Okay, so let's get to that little nutshell. And talking to somebody that has survived an incredibly intense childhood, total PTSD, totally got into this, work myself to death so nobody could hurt me again. I'll take care of myself because my parents rejected and abandoned me, and I was just on it. And so when I went through the awakening and expansion out of those limited beliefs that were triggering the heck out of my nervous system and totally got me in fight or flight and totally had been submerged in just deep, dark, icky feelings in my expansion, the one thing that really, really worked first is accept that I felt this way and not making it about somebody else is making me feel this way. Somebody else is making me feel uncomfortable. Somebody else is lying. Oh, somebody's going to come and actually love me correctly. Meanwhile, I have to deal with all these crappy people. That's all projection of our wound. So if we don't start to heal that wound, we can't receive. We can't get the life that we want. So what we first have to do is just accept that this is where we're at and we're not going to make it anybody else's fault or any other person coming to save us from it. We're going to own this is where I'm at. And so that's what I did. This is where I'm at. It's a level 1.5 and I need to get to 5. I got that whole 5D university thing going on. So feel it. And then I've really just learned to cultivate a better feeling every time. Before you knew it, it started like feeling good. And then I could say the mental things to myself like, ooh, you look good, girl. Yes. And then when the guy said to me, ooh, you look good, girl. I would be like, yeah, I do. Giving yourself is what you're going to receive. Everything starts with you. What energy you're putting into the matrix is what's going to be reflected back. So you really just got to learn to cultivate. And the biggest correction, if we want to call it that, is indicated through those icky feelings when people are trying to give us. And then we go into what we've always known. Now, don't trust it. Men ain't shit, blah, 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 all these stories. Well, let the stories go for now. That's why I don't use the mind except for a little bit. I go into the feeling. Oh, let me raise this feeling from the dead. Yeah. So I hope this helps because this is huge. Healing the receiving wound. Everything we want is on the other side of that. So everything we want is on this other side of just laying down in the bed, remembering the feelings of uncomfortableness in the environment that we had and saying, what is this? Let me shift it and try not to get too analytical. Our mind is why we're in this. And not really getting to the crux of it, which is our energy body, our emotional body, and mastering the art of alchemy within ourselves, which I call cultivating a better emotion. Screw the outside. The outside will reflect it as soon as we get our ability to be in that place so we can receive the better outside without shutting down. Okay, so I hope this really helps because the receiving wound is huge to me. It is huge because without healing that, there is no level up, y'all. There's no expansion. It's just another way of looking at the limited self versus the expansive soul that we want to become in tune and aligned with in these higher energies and mindsets. And then we will receive what it is we want. No, God is not forsaking you. You're just pinching yourself off to it, to the love that you can receive everywhere. The kingdom of heaven is spread out all across the world. So, all right, Untangent. I hope that helps. If you like it, please share, like, subscribe. And until next time, take care.